So here's just a couple of interesting fun facts. So about the usage of road salts in the United States. So in 2022, the usage of road salts for the snow and ice industry influenced nearly $5 billion in necessary road repairs. So many of us see this when we look at salt seeping into concrete, damaging concrete, asphalt, curbs, gutters, drainage, or we see it seep deeply enough into concrete that we're now rusting and rotting rebar and causing concrete structural problems. So $5 billion is no small figure. It is definitely a large figure, and we use an excess amount of salt in our country that we continually strive to reduce. Another fact, so in 2021, it was estimated that nearly 24 million tons of road salt was used annually in the U.S. So that is a huge number. A huge number that we look to try and reduce. So all these figures in this data comes from magazine articles, or like you can see at the bottom where we source it, Bridgestone tires, the pros and cons of using road salt. So it impacts everything from the quality of our vehicles to the roadways to the environment. So we really want to take that total amount and look at it into how much we're using, how much we're having to spend to, fix the infrastructure that we're damaging just as a natural consequence of us using road salts to protect our roads and people from the snow and ice in the winter. The last key point is 1 teaspoon of salt has the capabilities of polluting 5 gallons of water permanently, so forever. So when you think about 1 teaspoon compared to the amount we have to use to clear roadways and parking lots, sidewalks, anywhere we're clearing it and we're using vastly greater amounts than a teaspoon, is contaminating that 5 gallons of water. So it is extremely important that we look at that figure and we really realize that, when we're using excess amounts of these salts and these materials, we're doing a lot more polluting than we think. And it's acceptable to a limit, but how can we really focus on bringing that number down so we're contaminating as little as possible, but still out there providing safe roads and good services to people? So our third key major point is going to be talk about weather conditions and timing. So we really look at understanding when to apply, how much do we apply, and then the compositions of the products available. So we're making sure that we apply the right product for our climate or for the property. This is a huge topic, and I think it's going to continue to be maybe one of the bigger drivers of how we look at our salt usage, because our climate is changing so much across North America. We're seeing, slightly warmer temps at different times of the year. We might be seeing less snow events, but the ones we get are dramatically greater, or we're seeing less dry snow or more wet snow. Here in Colorado, we see a little less snow events now, but the ones we're seeing are a lot bigger, and they're just kind of shifting in time. So we're having to really look at what we apply and when we apply it, and how that's changing versus how we used to do business. So when you had colder temperatures, maybe more frequent events, your ground temp stayed cold, but the surface may be a little bit more dry. You're really looking at having to apply material differently to help break up hard packed snow and ice from the surface. You're having to use different kinds of equipment, which damages the roadway, more over a prolonged period of time. So as the weather shifts and say we're warming up a little bit, we may not see that dramatic adhesion to the pavement. We may be able to dial back a little bit on the materials we use because we're able to scrape and push a little bit more. So really understanding the weather and how we time our application of materials in your region is very important to reducing that usage. If you can find ways to use less but still get to the same results by using other equipment that maybe doesn't use liquids and granular materials, or maybe because you're seeing a dramatic amount of snow in a 36-hour period instead of a 72-hour period, how does the cleanup look from that? Are we out there having to reapply to break up ice or melt ice or hit those spots? Are we able to dial it back a little bit because we're monitoring sites frequently and we're able to see there's a lot more snow melt going on? So understanding the weather is huge, understanding the timing of storms, what type of moisture we get, ground temperatures is all going to help you effectively look at the way you use liquid and granular salts and hopefully dial back a little bit if your region and the environment's changing enough to be able to do so. So all three of these points kind of influence this communicating your objectives to the client. So as we look on the right, so we need to, as we focus on these bullet points, we need to really educate the client on what we're doing. A lot of companies out there, whether it's the snow and ice removal companies or the property management companies, sometimes there's a disconnect, or sometimes the client even realizes that they don't care how it gets done. They just want to make sure it's done and done effectively. So it's our job as the snow and ice removal companies to educate the clients on what we're doing and why we're doing it. So if there's changes we're making, if there's different compositions of chemicals we're using, different equipment to make sure the job's done right, we need to make sure that they understand that. And they understand we may be going through some changes this winter, that we're going to try new things. So we're going to really look at different ways of getting the same results or even better results. But we have to make sure that they know that ahead of time. So there's no questions or no gray space in what we're doing and providing a level of service to what's expected from them. Working together with them to create that plan is also a great way to do it. Sometimes we have property managers, or we even have regions or different clients that want to be more involved. They're adhering to regulations or requirements on their sites, or a lot of municipal clients are this way. We start talking about even other government entities such as universities, schools, parks, and recreations. So they have to adhere to a certain requirement. So they want to make sure they're involved in the process and know everything going on. It's great for us to communicate our objectives and what we want to do and how we want to make sure that we meet their expectations. And then if we're making those changes or transitions throughout the season, we keep them aware so that they know what's going on, so that then when they have to relay the message, they feel like part of not only the conversation, but of the service being completed. Lastly, main bullet point here is with the client, it's great if you demonstrate what you're doing and show the results. So take the client out there, demonstrate the work that's being done, show them the results you're getting so they can kind of better understand and visualize of knowing what's working or what's not working, or what we're trying to do to ensure we're getting them the best service possible. So here's just a brief little layout of how I like to look at this process. So our process for reducing salt usage. So as we see in those steps, we really focus on researching our options, testing equipment and products, evaluating results, and then determining our service and site plan. So as we go through this testing phase and really looking at different options, trying them out, looking at the results, and we're creating this plan of, what's expected in the service and for the site for the client. And then we look at so just below that, we get this box that says communicate objectives, process, and results with clients. So across that whole process, as we step through it, we are absolutely communicating with our clients on what our objectives are and what we're doing. We want them to be informed so that they can be prepared for anything we're doing, or if they have questions, or if we're trying something new. If everyone's on the same page throughout this entire process, it's going to give us a much stronger relationship with the client, but it's also too going to help us all meet the goals that we're striving to get to.